Eventually, Aster finally opens the device and sees what is inside. He finds some potions and a cloak that is too big for him to use. Alongside those items lies a defensive artifact. Then he finally witnesses what he was searching for. Declan's secret grimoire, Red Flame. A laser-type secret spell derived from the blue flame used by Farron. It is a diamond-grade magic that can even burn through force fields. But one needs to reach mastery to actually penetrate them. And that takes time. Suddenly, he remembers that today is the midterm performance evaluation. Everyone gathers on the ground shortly after. Damon is excited for the day while our boy notices the unusually large crowd. Hearing that, Chenbi informs him it is. All the classes from M1 to theirs are gathered. Then shares the rumor that this time's evaluation might be the Canyon breakthrough. The news prompts our hero to think about the midterm performance evaluation, which consists of 3 types of tests. The trial corridor, a maze-like sewer where one must reach the goal. The Canyon breakthrough where students race to the finish line. And the simulator where one duels against a person or monster. Although to Aster it does not matter what event it is. As long as he can pass without making any big trouble, he is fine with it. However, he understands that for Chenbi the situation is different. Chenbi starts calculating strategies for the Canyon breakthrough, when suddenly someone shouts for everyone to quiet down. Professor Perron appears, introducing himself as the supervising professor of Class M1 in the Magic Department. Declares that he will be overseeing the evaluation. Meanwhile, our hero notices that Perron's dark circles have gotten worse since the last time they met. Professor Perron continues and announces that today's chosen test for the evaluation is the trial corridor. Chenbi instantly loses hope as all his planning falls apart and he panics. Meanwhile, Perron begins explaining the rules. He states that the trial corridor is a maze-like sewer. The goal is to pass through it and reach the final gate. No matter which path they take, they will end up at the goal eventually. So there is nothing for the students to worry about. Chenbi finds it easy until Perron reveals that it would be a meaningless race this way. He then summons a figure formed from his mana, introducing them as golems. Hearing that, Chenbi becomes terrified while Professor Perron continues, revealing that although they may be slow, clunky constructs, they are still tough for the students' level. Their cores are exposed and their durability is adjusted, so the students should be able to handle them. But even so, in such a closed space, the golems will be able to catch the students easily. He then starts thinking about how mages truly lack composure, remembering how Paul showed grit by pushing himself to the limit. Yet he wonders if perhaps the environment is at fault. Even so, there are a few students with potential. He looks at Furion and a few more, and then his eyes land on Damien, as he silently thinks that Damien does not seem to be thinking about anything at all. Assumes he will not pass the test. Breaking out of his thoughts, he explains that the golems will act as gatekeepers at the intersections. Whether they defeat them or avoid them is up to each student. Every participant will also be given a test bracelet, which has protection power similar to a force field. If it breaks, they are disqualified, and the golems will ignore them afterward. After explaining it all, Professor Perron notices how demotivated everyone looks, encourages them to impress him. He adds that he does not care if they reach the goal first or defeat the most opponents. He declares he will personally reward them if they show him something impressive. Standing among the students, Aster reacts sharply at the mention of a reward. Raptor is the largest library on the eastern continent, divided into 3 tiers, upper, middle, and lower. The tower Aster is permitted to access is the lower tier. When he went to the library to look for clues, he found no trace of the magical volume there. Eventually, if he wants a lead, he will have to search at least the middle tier and above. However, the middle and upper tiers are restricted to royalty, art nobles, and distinguished houses. There is only one way to enter: recommendations from 3 or more professors. In order to get that, our boy needs to earn Professor Perron's reward. Although he is aware that even if he tries to aim for the middle quietly, people would not leave him alone. He brushes it aside, silently declaring that he has already memorized everything about the cross-section diagram. After giving the instructions, Professor Perron grants the students a short preparation time, instructs them to collect supplies from the assistant professor. Soon after, the students begin asking for various items, trying to make things easier or attempting tricks, but the assistant professor refuses all their requests. Meanwhile, watching them, our protagonist cannot help wonder whether they are midgets or just common ruffians. On the other hand, Damien asks for 20 vine seeds. When the assistant professor reminds him of his primary element, Damien explains that he does not have one, but he can still use plant magic. Meanwhile, Chenbi stands there nervously, prompting Aster to think that even Damien is preparing, and he wonders if Chenbi will be able to break out of his shell with this opportunity. Soon after, they are assigned their starting locations, according to their numbers. Our hero steps ahead and checks that his starting point is at 3. The others are positioned elsewhere. Damien appears excited while Chenbi wishes them both well for the exam. However, our protagonist notices that the group starting at 3 consists of around 6 people, none of whom he recognizes. It reminds him of the time he went alone, on a troubleshooter mission with a different squad. Suddenly, 3 guys approach, calling out his name, but he does not recognize them. They do not even feel like Class M3 students. The first guy introduces himself as Dolbe and begins proposing a deal. Aster agrees to listen as Dole reveals that he will buy the bracelets of those who get eliminated for 30 gold each, excluding our boy and themselves. He offers Aster the job of taking down 3 people and promises to pay 90 gold. Meanwhile, our boy thinks about how 30 gold is about peasant families' monthly income, wonders why a bracelet is worth that much. Doolby interrupts and says it is not bad for a rat from the black and white district. He tells him that for now Aster is protecting himself, but that will not last long, and he should start looking for ways to survive. Aster looks at him awkwardly, silently admitting that he is not completely wrong. Others might call it cowardice or resentment, but Aster believes they are simply making the best use of what they have. However, he still questions why the payment is 90 gold. Doolby increases it to 35 gold each, totaling 105. But our protagonist says it still does not add up. The group looks confused as our hero explains that there are 3 people. Including them, it becomes 6. DB agrees and our boy asks why he subtracted the young master's life from the prize. Since Aster raised it to 35 each, that makes 210 gold, which is the correct count. This frustrates DB, who silently wonders if our boy does not know his place. Eventually, he raises it to 40 gold. Hearing this, Aster smiles, commenting that makes it 240. Doolby assumes that Aster is greedy and trying to profit from the situation, thinking he does not even understand that greed might lead him to trouble. He wonders if a barbarian can foresee such consequences and considers it a waste of time. He believes that to carry out the lady's orders, there is no better hunting dog than our boy. However, since he considers him mad, they will find another method. Dole walks away, ending the negotiation. Suddenly, Aster interrupts from behind, explaining that regardless of anything else, Dool will still owe him for the bracelets. Doolby turns back annoyed while our protagonist explains that if they load 3 packs, 3 people into a carriage and then remove the packs, they should still pay for the people. He demands 120 gold. Hearing that, one of Dool's friends becomes furious and mocks our boy, cursing him, declaring that Doole is not the same as him, that his district once held the title of Baron. From behind, Doolby tries to stop him, but his friend continues, pushing Doole to shout at him, not to make him spit on his face any longer. He finally agrees to pay 120 gold, silently admitting that the young lady's order takes priority, that if they earn her favor, his merchant guild could expand significantly. However, Aster cannot overlook such a noble person, so he raises the price again, claiming that since they are nobles, the amount must double, 160 gold coins. Doolby agrees and hands over the coins, declaring that from this moment on, he will show our hero how hard life can become for 160 gold pieces. Soon after, Professor Perron explains that the field barrier activates against spells that directly strike the body or attacks imbued with mana. If the barrier is destroyed, the bracelet stays where it is, and the wearer is forcibly removed from the test. He assures them not to worry about injuries then. Professor Perron starts the test. They first complete the wrap, then show interior footage, and finally begin grading. Meanwhile, sitting behind, Professor Perron notices that Dahlia and Damien share the same starting point. Before he can think further, the screen suddenly begins to flicker and lag. The assistant professors begin chattering in confusion, wondering what is happening. While Perron asks them to stop, check the magic eye, asking which starting point it is. The assistant professor reports that it is starting point 3. As soon as the wrap completes, DB snaps his fingers. A beam of light scatters across the wall. He declares that from now on, he is going to be trouble for everyone. Noting they are short on time, he urges his group to begin. Immediately, DBE and 2 of his friends launch their magic against Aster. However, our boy stands firm until the realization hits that getting hit by magic means instant disqualification and forced transfer. Therefore, he has no choice but to dodge and strike back. Our protagonist jumps through the wall and rushes straight at them. He strikes but pulls back his mana right before impact to avoid disqualification. He then starts beating them all one by one, calling the process orderly. Satisfied, he punches and kicks them repeatedly, eventually knocking them down until they collapse on the ground. Afterward, he mockingly remarks how he managed to beat everyone already, prompting Doole to raise the price to 320 gold for the insolence, while our hero offers 1 silver per hit in return. Soon after, Doole shouts, his face swollen from the beating, and questions if Aster is going to pay for all this. Instantly, our protagonist hits him again, telling him to get lost. He then starts calculating that according to 100 hits, that is 10 gold deducted. He admits that without Damien around, keeping his power in check was tough. Eventually, he realizes he must make sure the roles of victim, aggressor do not switch, so he maintains his position as the victim. Aster has now successfully secured the 6 bracelets. He thinks about how he needs 3 recommendations in total, meaning he will need 2 more people to claim Perron's reward. In the end, he will have to get another professor to personally vouch for him. He sits there wondering what kind of impression he should make. Looking at the corridors, our hero considers whether he should destroy them, noting that there are only 4 pillars holding up the ground. But eventually, he brushes off the idea since he would make an enemy of the entire eastern continent that way. So he decides not to think too much and just keeps moving on his own. As he starts to walk, Aster wonders how the others are doing. Meanwhile, elsewhere, some other students are struggling and questioning how the situation is even possible. In front of them stands Damien, controlling the golems with vine seeds and not letting anyone pass through. In another area, Chenbi confesses that he is only here to pass the exam, shouting for others to stop attacking him as he hides behind a pillar. 2 girls stand nearby exhausted, as one asks the other to go and catch Chenbi. However, she refuses, doubting her friend's intentions. As they begin to argue, Chenbi finds a chance to run off, thinking that aiming high is a luxury for someone like him, and that he only needs to pass the exam. He rushes forward when suddenly he notices the bracelet he is wearing is surrounded by red energy. Confused, he wonders what is happening. Eventually realizes he might have been hit by magic without noticing and is already disqualified. He twists into a corner, thinking he will be transferred soon, but nothing happens. Just then a voice calls out and greets them all, calling them refined schoolers of the academy. Chenbi realizes that the voice does not belong to the academy. The voice continues, saying that everyone may wonder who they are, but some might have already guessed and should know why this is happening. They declare to those who suspect their identity that they have no demands, only the consequence of angering a great being. Suddenly, they announce that every student will die right here, and there is no way out. Even Damien notices the voice. Meanwhile, outside, the assistant professor freaks out, questioning who it is, especially since even the magic IR is offline. Sitting behind them, Professor Perron asks the staff not to panic, tells them to fetch the professors, specifically Professor Felina, demanding they bring her faster than anyone. The assisting teacher rushes around doing as told, while Professor Perron sits back in his chair, anger flickering in his eyes as he curses someone. Meanwhile, back inside, our protagonist has already destroyed a golem as another starts to emerge. Feeling frustrated, Aster wonders what is going on. Aster fights the golems one by one, striking them down with calculated precision. However, he soon notices that the constructs, which should be moving slowly and stiffly, are instead fast and nimble. A strange voice continues to echo through the testing ground as 10 minutes pass. On top of that, the golems are pinpointing exactly where Aster is and rushing straight at him. He realizes that if these gatekeeper-type golems are moving autonomously, someone has tampered with the control system. Since there are too many of them, it is clear that every unit in storage has been released. Even so, our protagonist remains confident in himself, thinking that he is someone who has experienced everything except aerial combat. He rushes forward as magical orbs form in his hands, declaring that no matter who they are, he will beat them all. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Chenny is nervous and exhausted from walking. He admits that if he had known this would happen, he would have dropped out early, fearing he might die in these corridors. Just then, he notices someone running toward him. It is our hero, but behind him rush countless golems. Witnessing them, Chenbi is terrified as Aster pats him on the shoulder and tells him to run. Silently, Aster thinks about how he was simply sensing man came running this way, assuming it was Damien he had detected. He also realizes that with the way Chenbi is running, the boy will eventually be caught. Consequently, Aster decides to use Plan B and demands Chenbi hand over his bracelet. He explains that the golem's natural detection range is not wide enough for them to chase so precisely. Therefore, the bracelet must be linked to the tampered control system, acting as a beacon. Hearing this, Chenbi takes off the bracelet, but becomes worried about our hero. Aster reveals that since he has already been marked as a target, pulling the golems toward himself gives Chenbi the highest survival chance. He tells Chenbi to run, promising to buy time and find Damien. He also reminds Chenbi that he has a family and must survive no matter what. These words remind Chenbi of his family, who always encouraged him. He finally hands over the bracelet, asking Aster to survive. Meet them again as soon as possible. Aster takes it with a smile while Chenbi runs back, admitting that he has no choice but to live. His parents, who bought him a spellbook instead of food, and his younger sister, who quit school because of him, all deserve a better life. He remembers his mother's words calling him a proud son. But suddenly he doubts himself, questioning if he is really someone to be proud of. He considers himself indecisive, timid, and nothing special. The realization hits Chenbi that he has even abandoned a friend. Refusing to add another guilt to his heart, he decides to never give up, uses the best magic he knows. The spell his teacher left him, the one who awakened his talent. He desperately tries to use the power of Earth. Suddenly, insane energy scatters forward as Chenli shouts for our protagonist to watch out. The energy strikes straight at the enemy. Our hero recognizes the spell as magic that not only reshapes the rock forming the trial corridor, but alters its quality as well. As a result, the ground and the enemies are completely ruined. Aster is shocked, thinking that changing two properties is extremely difficult, that this is not a spell Chenbi should be able to maintain. Suddenly, Chenbi collapses. Aster catches him as Chenbi reveals that it is a spell his master left behind called Spar of Earth. He finds the name grand, but our hero disagrees, though he adds that it is still impressive. He tells the boy that with a spell like this, it is the caster who proves its worth. Whether it is grand or not depends entirely on how the user employs it. Meanwhile, a bloodied Chenbi calls out our boy's name. Aster brings out a potion and makes him drink it. Chenbi recovers quickly, while Aster wonders whether he should drag the boy along or leave him there. Eventually, he decides and uses his mana flow to map the area. After figuring things out, he tells Chenbi to go straight, informing him that he will reach the other students at the fork. When Chenbi asks about him, our hero does not answer directly. Instead, he senses the mana flowing toward the control room and finds it strange. It feels familiar, yet Aster is sure that it is not Declan's method. He simply declares that he has something to do. Silently decides to go check it out. Running towards the control room, Aster tries to remember where he felt this mana before. Somehow it doesn't feel like it belongs to Declan. The moment our hero reaches the room, his eyes widen in shock as he finds a demonic realm in front of him. As a creepy smile takes over his face, our protagonist finally realizes why he feels the familiarity. He has faced this presence before. Looking inside the realm, Aster also finds the cursed beings lying within, leading him to think that they have even recreated those cursed beings who terrorized the continent centuries ago. To him, it seems like they always choose the worst possible things to do. As an even creepier smile takes over, Aster calls out Frizen's name. He is sure that he is behind it, calling him a rat bastard. Meanwhile, inside the inner control room of the trials corridor, a man is standing, laughing at his victory in successfully creating the demonic realm. It is actually Frizen, who now thinks that everything about the realm is quite perfect due to the ancient artifact, a magical glove that he is wearing. With the spatial severing function of the artifact, he was able to enter it without being harmed, and the demonic energy erosion function helped him take control over the room. It even helped him create a demonic realm, about which Frizen is clearly excited. At this moment, a man appears from the shadows, asking Frizen whether he succeeded or did something he wasn't supposed to do. Frizen with a smile states that the creation of the demonic energy completes the contract between them. Moreover, it will be enough to ruin that professor's reputation, until his downfall becomes inevitable. The man appearing from the shadows is completely visible now, who is actually the mighty hound of House Weimar. He states he doesn't care about what method Frizen chooses. All he wants is to ruin the Xenian Academy, along with the professor whom they are protecting. Showing his respect, Frizen agrees to go according to the order, calling the man by his family name, which is House Weimar. Hearing this, the man suggests Frizen should not say the name from his filthy mouth, unless he wants death. As Frizen is still bending in front of him, he thinks to himself that the man is just from a vassal family under Declan. He is still so full of pride, but right now Frizen is thinking to endure him. He wants a place for experimentation, which Weimar will provide upon the completion of this contract between them. Moreover, he is also getting excited about the demonic realm which he created just a while ago. It is a forbidden magic sect salvation. So Frizen seems quite excited about it. Finding a student coming towards them, Weimar asks about how much time Frizen requires to completely control the system. Hearing this, Frizen gets excited, calls that student their first test subject, which appears confusing to Weimar. So he inquires about it. To make him understand, Frizen questions him in return if he wants to see what the demonic energy of such a high level can do to a person. Answering immediately, Weimar claims people become crazy or die immediately due to the exposure, though this theory is commonly known amongst everyone. Frizen with a creepy smile explains that according to ancient texts, the demonic realm with mana and ether is different. It results in human beautification, turning humans into insane and mad beasts. Standing in front of the screen, looking at our boy who is standing in front of the realm with demonic beasts. Golems are chasing him from behind. Frizen wonders if he will enter the realm or not. That's what he wants Aster to do. With shock on his face, Aster is standing in front of the realm, but suddenly he lets out a quirky smirk and whispers while making signs with his mouth. Our hero challenges Frizen to wait for him. Hearing this, Fen becomes too stunned to speak. Vimar questions if he is familiar with that boy. Since Fen has never seen him before, he denies it. But he is getting scared about the fact that the student knows his name. At this moment, Aster takes out the test bracelet, which makes Frizen even more scared and shocked. Moving forward, our boy runs towards the demons, puts the test bracelet on each of them. Later on, Aster orders them to kill each other. Hearing this, Frizen speaks in pain, but he realizes Aster is coming towards them pretty fast. He is trying to make his demonic monster stop our hero. But it's too late to do anything now. Breaking through the walls, Aster appears in front of them and greets Frizen, saying, "It's been a long time since they last met each other." On the other hand, Chenbi has found Damien too, who is fighting with the golems. But Chenbi is rather confused, seeing how he is controlling them without any difficulty. As Chenbi is still trying to figure things out, Dahlia questions him how he got here. Instead of answering, he finds all of them are still wearing the bracelets. So he suggests they should throw them out. They are the reason why golems are finding them. But then Evine appears on the scene thinking he is lying. Furthermore, she thinks he just wants to take their bracelets too. Chenbi cannot believe that she is suspecting him, as Evine puts false allegations on him. Chenbi claims there are things more important than these bracelets. Also explains that these bracelets work like a tracking system being linked to the control system. Evine questions how he found it out. So Chenbi states it was Aster who told him about it. However, as he is about to say something else, Evine interrupts him. She claims he got deceived by someone and lost his bracelet. Now he is trying to deceive them too so he doesn't fail the exam. Calling our boy a vagrant, she further states that Chenbi got deceived by him, even after paying attention in class. Remembering how Aster helped him earlier, Chenbi gets quite furious, thinking she knows nothing about him. He is about to speak when Damien speaks up, walking towards them and taking out his bracelet. Damien claims that when he first met Aster, he questioned him about what he had at that time. Without any pause, our protagonist answered that he had a friend. So now Damien is also going to trust his friend Aster. At the same moment, Damien throws away his bracelet, claiming he doesn't need it. They can take it if that is all they want. While walking away from them, Damien asks Chenbi to come along. Looking at his act, Chenbi wonders if he is really Damien. The old Damien wouldn't have done anything like this. Meanwhile, Aster, who is standing in front of Frizen, claims he once went inside the demonic realm to kill him. But who knew that they would meet like this? Although Frizen can't understand him, in fear he asks the Hound Weimar to protect him. Weimar questions if this is really their first meeting, and Frizen answers in the affirmative. After becoming sure, the Hound Weimar begins to approach our boy. His job is to protect Frizen. For this, he is going to kill Aster without leaving any trace behind. Looking at him, Aster thinks to himself that the man is from a vassal family under Declan with secret wind magic. It is a prestigious house famous for its speed and power. Moreover, this hound is actually the cast-off child, whom the Weimar family has been raising separately. He is someone who acts like a real hunting dog for his owner. Moving on, Aster asks the reason behind him being with Frizen since he finds it suspicious. Instead of answering, the hound questions in return if our boy knows his identity. In a fit of anger, Aster yells that he was the one who first questioned him, still shouting. Our protagonist repeats his question. So Weimar's hound wonders if he is trying to seek death by doing this. Instead of answering, he again questions Aster, which makes Aster even more furious. With a loud voice, our hero repeats his question a third time, orders him to give an answer. Hearing this, the hound becomes angry too and attacks our boy. While dodging the attacks and running towards him, Aster repeats his question again calling him a Weimar hound and calling Frizen a rat bastard. Running towards the hound, Aster is sure to win against him, with his magical weapon and speed. Actually, Aster was repeating his question again and again. The hound was raised like a real dog. Since our boy has raised dogs too, he knows that dogs get anxious after hearing the same thing repeatedly. The hound gets angry as he realizes Aster is treating him like a dog and finds it humiliating. Meanwhile, our protagonist claims this is the reality and calls him Declan's dog. On the other hand, Frizen is shouting at the hound, asking him to beat our hero. At this moment, Aster makes his final move. Using the collision magic, he kills the Weimar's hound at once. After that, he challenges Frizen, since it is just the two of them now. Frizen is just standing there in complete shock at the hound's death. Moving on, Frizen takes out his weapon and is about to attack our boy. But Aster throws the dead hound's weapon towards him, cuts the arm in which Frizen was holding the weapon. Seeing this, Fen yells in pain while crying over the lost arm. Terrified and fearful, he pleads with Aster not to come closer to him. Looking behind at the magic globe, he remembers the demonic realm which he just created. Therefore, he challenges our boy not to kill him. If he dies, he won't be able to stop the realm. Moreover, he claims Aster's other friends will also get stuck in it. Without caring about the threat, Aster asks him to go further, which appears even more shocking to Friesen. Furthermore, Aster states he can wait until the demonic realm takes over everyone, and after that he will teach Friesen the lesson he deserves. Meanwhile, Friesen is just staring at our hero with pure fear in his eyes. Blood is dripping out of Friesen's shoulder while he wonders. This demonic realm should really devour his friends, and he should feel fearful. But the stillness of Aster is more terrifying, looking at his igniting eyes with no mercy in them. A question echoes in his mind. Is our boy actually human? To scare our protagonist, Friesen repeats that he is the only one who can stop this demonic realm within the 5 minutes remaining before its completion. Aster interrupts him coldly, stating he knows that all his friends will die. As anxiety takes over, Friesen walks towards Aster and yells, demanding to know why he isn't doing anything, when he knows what can actually happen. In his dilemma, Aster suddenly holds Friesen's other arm and twists it with immense force. Yelling in pain, Friesen doesn't realize that the artifact is no longer in his hand. By the time he realizes the loss, it is already too late. Our hero is wearing it, claiming he isn't the only one who can use such a tool. As Friesen stands back in fear, our protagonist, guided by his past memories, puts his hand on the controller. Friesen cannot believe that Aster is actually controlling the system himself. Meanwhile, our hero begins telling Friesen that he can never forget him, since he is the one who taught forbidden magic to the young master in their past life. Since only Friesen and the young master knew this magic, Friesen was the only one who had to be killed. Aster knew that Declan would eventually kill the man, which is why Aster himself went out to hunt him before Declan could. Our boy claims that after looking for him for a long time, he nearly went insane. He states he was full of pride, believing he could catch anyone across the continent. But finding Friesen seemed like an impossible task. Aster searched every possible place but could not find him, soaking his hands in blood during the search. Finally, he found the demonic realm, was about to locate his target, but the demonic beast took over. Later on, our hero began to lose his sanity due to the demonic energy. After trying everything, he finally gave up, exited the realm only to find a troubleshooter waiting outside. He was too scared to go inside. That shooter told Aster that Declan had already killed Friesen after extracting all the information about the forbidden magic and the artifact. As Aster continues describing how he sat in front of the realm for days, Friesen falls to his knees on the floor because he is continuously losing blood. Friesen claims with a trembling voice that he never taught anything to a young master of any family, so he doesn't understand any of this. Looking at him dying without hearing the story, our boy takes out a healing potion and gives it to Friesen. Apparently, Aster wants him to hear the full story. Friesen is now thinking only of finding a way to run away and survive. Continuing his story, our hero looks upward and states that, sitting there, he once saw a wyvern in the sky. It was flying freely while our protagonist found himself pathetic in comparison. At that moment, his revenge for his friends turned into emotional venting. He gave up on the idea of vengeance. As Friesen attempts to run away, Aster dashes towards him, pushes his face into the ground. Aster claims that he finally found him today. Just for this day, our hero had been going through all the information Friesen left behind about the demonic realm, forbidden magic, and the disgusting artifact again and again. As Friesen groans in pain, Aster continues, stating that he studied the death of his comrades as well. At this moment, our hero picks up the hound's dagger, yells that he has enough time to make Friesen go through every suffering his comrades faced in the past, one by one. Friesen cries tears of fear as he faces his death. On the other hand, the professors have finally found a way out, are running around to locate the students. Professor Felina realizes they have lost 2 hours due to the magic. Must hurry before anyone dies. Amidst her thoughts, an assistant shows her the magic eye and reports it has been restored. Taking it, she orders everyone to find the students first, either by the magic eye or by themselves, and further orders them not to broadcast anything. She does this because they don't know how the intruders might act. After looking for a while, they find the students alive, safe, which seems suspicious to Professor Felina. She cannot believe that intruders controlled the gate for 2 hours, yet killed no one. In this instance, Professor Fun, who is in the control room, asks her to look through the magic eye. The moment Professor Felina looks at the screen, her eyes widen in disgust at the gruesome scene. Meanwhile, Professor Fun explains that there were 2 intruders who were killed miserably. Professor Felina thinks to herself that she has never come across anything like this and wonders who is responsible. A picture of Aster appears in her mind, recalling when she first received his application letter. Although he is a vagabond from the Black White Zone, he applied under the Blando family. At that time, his magic powers showed an error reading on the application, which seemed suspicious to her, and an assistant professor suggested watching him closely. As she looks behind her, our boy is already standing there with the other students. At that moment, a man appears, apologizing for being late. Everyone addresses him as the principal, but he corrects them, saying they can call him the headmaster instead. Professor Felina accepts his apology, since he traveled from the Outer East continent. The headmaster appreciates the professor for handling everything, noting she proved his trust was well placed. As the image of Aster appears before him, he questions Professor Felina, asking if our protagonist is the one who killed the intruders and did this. At night, the rain is pouring all over the place. While our hero is sitting and meditating in an abandoned shrine, he thinks about the heart demon which every mage possesses. It appears without any warning, and ends up ruining things most of the time. Aster also reflects on how he didn't have it in his last life, because being a troubleshooter, he just did what he was ordered and never really mourned his comrades' deaths, instead taking it as fate. The soul of his anger and rage is his death by forbidden magic. Although he thought that he had moved beyond these emotions, it now seems like they are turning into the seed of a heart demon, getting angry at the thought. Aster thinks he is hugging a ticking bomb that can explode anywhere. As he stands up, he questions himself about his identity. Though he is a former troubleshooter, he thinks of himself as someone else too. Feels like this tension is actually good for him, since a week has passed after the coffin of the trials incident. Aster thinks today is his opportunity since his condition is quite perfect. He takes out a book, which is The Secret Art of the Red Flower, Jaqua, and prepares to defeat his enemy. In his previous life, our protagonist learned non-elemental techniques since he was a troubleshooter. But today he is going to learn the Red Flower, which is an elemental secret art. Running through the pages of the book, our hero finds he has already entered the first stage, yet he intends to check the technique until the end. After reading the entire book, Aster begins thinking of his own ways to adapt the style. He believes he can circulate mana through the Red Flower circuit, since the mana circuits are quite similar to the Heaven Source art, which can result in fire mana. As he starts the meditation again, our protagonist is certain he can create the imagery. All he wants is a burning flame and nothing else. Apparently, Aster is trying to create something that won't necessarily use oxygen, a fire that can burn even without it. The fire that was kept in his heart for a long time finally manifests into real fire. As our boy finally succeeds in creating the flames, he realizes it is way more powerful and destructive than his usual mana usage. Although the compression is within a limit, its repulsive force is rather strong. So he thinks of using the collision formula for the time being, even if it feels rather shameful for Aster. Moving on, Aster encourages himself since he is getting closer to his enemy. Furthermore, after adding the fire attribute to the basic art, he requires some useful magic to pair with it. Our hero is sure that any spell can work with it since fire-type magic doesn't rely much on specific forms. At this moment, Aster feels someone standing on the other side of the exit, so he walks there and opens the door. It is the principal who is standing in front of the door. The man appreciates Professor Felina in his mind the moment Aster appears in front of him. Moving forward, the principal praises our boy for handling the fire mana alone. Aster addresses him as the president, but the man corrects him, saying that he can call him principal instead. As the principal is about to say something, he begins to use magic instead, causing the pressure in the air to increase. Although our protagonist can't understand why everyone does this upon meeting him, he asks himself the same question: who is he? He answers himself that since he is a former troubleshooter, he can break, but he won't bend, which is his conviction. Amidst these thoughts, the principal questions why he isn't greeting him, considering he is the highest ranker in the entire academy. The moment our boy hears it, he immediately bends and calls him Mr. President, but then corrects himself and addresses him again as Mr. Principal. Actually, Aster is shouting the name. Aster changes his conviction here, deciding that the waist exists so that one can bend. The principal orders our protagonist to lower his voice, though he praises him again. While still bending, Aster again shouts to apologize for his mistake. Seeing this, the principal suggests that no one will come here. After hearing him, since he has already blocked off the surroundings, this was actually Aster's plan to gather people, leading the man to call him a quick-witted bastard. As the principal sits on the ground, our hero questions the reason behind him being here. The principal answers that he was curious about something, though he doesn't think Aster will answer correctly. Moving on, he orders Aster to sit on the floor. Aster's body simply follows the orders due to the high mana of the principal. Since our hero's body is forcefully bending, the floor breaks into several pieces. Meanwhile, the principal claims that Aster is hiding something. According to Professor Felina, explains he just wants to know the truth. As the rainwater drips from his face, Aster thinks the man is a monster. Not at all, like the principal who was stuttering during the speech. But again, compared to his real enemy, this man is far less than a monster. Therefore, our boy tries to fight against the repulsive force, using the interference formula, and succeeds. Once Aster is back in control, He questions the principal whether this is about the coffin of trials. Aster agrees with the fact that he killed the intruders. The principal can't believe that he is just telling the truth like this. But Aster thinks it isn't a secret worth hiding. Although he didn't necessarily want it to get out, it wasn't important either way. Moving on, our boy asks if he has any other questions. As both pass deadly glances to each other, our protagonist thinks of raising a wyvern instead of eating it. He can get help in his time of need. Meanwhile, the principal bangs his hand on his head and begins to laugh. Our hero calls him a rare kind of lunatic, seeing the way he is altering his moods. After that, the principal praises him for the look in his eyes earlier, claims that he will now ask questions which Aster can answer easily. After that, he again asks our boy to sit down, to which he agrees, as both are sitting on their knees in front of each other. Aster finds the atmosphere different from earlier. The principal gives him the feeling of a war mage, but our protagonist can't comprehend whether it's his appearance, the atmosphere, or perhaps his true nature. As the principal is about to ask his first question, Aster interrupts him, asking whether he knew the wyvern that became a meal. This leaves the principal in shock, but our hero begs him to continue. Here the principal calls him a junior, to which our boy claims they have a teacher-student relationship. The principal yells at him, claiming that on the battlefield, they are senior and junior to each other. Although Aster can't understand what he is saying, he obeys since the man is stronger and calls him senior. Continuing the conversation and addressing Aster as a junior, the principal questions what terrible thing the intruders did that made Aster kill them like that, all while our boy stares back into the man's war mage eyes. The moment the headmaster questions our boy, Aster answers with another question about what he would have done instead. The headmaster answers that instead, they would crush them under their foot. Will plead with the majesty to let them gather their old comrades too. The moment our protagonist hears this, he understands that the man is referring to war mages, knights as old comrades who would definitely be strong forces. After thinking for a while, Aster speaks up, suggests that the headmaster is referring to Declan. Moving on, the headmaster questions if he is familiar with that mage who got eaten by the wyvern. Pondering upon it for a few seconds, our hero answers in the negative. The headmaster feels a bit of arrogance in his answer, since he also doesn't know that mage. Wonders if Aster is actually that one. Hearing it, our boy can't believe the headmaster can go this deep. He wanted to put all the blame on Declan, being left with no choice. Aster finally tells the truth that the person who got killed is Weimar. So the headmaster asks for details about both the intruders. To clarify, Aster begins explaining that one is Weimar, the other one is Friesen, a Magitech engineer. But the principal is not believing him and asks for solid evidence. Out of annoyance, our hero questions if he can't understand such a basic thing too. The principal can feel the arrogance in him, but ignoring it, he questions how Aster knows them. The next moment, Aster begins to tell everything to the principal. After telling everything he can, our boy becomes silent, while the principal is also thinking silently. Looking at him, Aster thinks to himself that he tried his best to answer everything, and by looking at the principal's face, he can see visible anger. The principal finally speaks up, questions if he knows that mage who got eaten by a goblin, also repeats that he can feel arrogance in his voice. Anxious and scared, our hero answers with a smile that they're having some kind of misunderstanding between them. But the principal asks him to stop smiling with his rotten goblin eyes. In answer, Aster immediately closes his eyes, pondering on that conversation they just had. The principal questions if he really wants to build a library as tall as the tower and also praises him. Later on, the principal also states that he can fill an entire wall of shelves on the top floor. So our boy thanks him for that. Meanwhile, our protagonist also thinks to himself how the world runs on connections instead of merits. After that, the principal states another thing that our hero will be granted an admission ticket to, with which he can enter the library. In return, the principal asks him for a favor. The principal asks our boy to open his eyes properly. Aster shows his desire to know about the favor he wants. The principal answers that they'll talk about the favor later. Begins to explain about the artifact which, although dangerous, has some advantages too. For example, it can help our hero to build his tower with the spatial severance. Hearing this, Aster finally remembers that with spatial severance, all the teleportation magic circles were blocked during the trials. Even the professors weren't able to break it, so Aster is thinking of using it as a defense. But then our boy realizes a problem. He talks about it with the principal, explaining that he is unfamiliar with Magitech. The principal recommends Professor Felina to him, since she's a trustworthy person. But it will be difficult to make her accept him, since they're unaware of his true identity. Therefore, the principal suggests a plan to him, which makes Aster quite shocked. The very next day, as Aster is sitting alone sipping on his tea, reading a book, Damon and Chenbi appear in the scene. As their mouths are filled with cake, they greet our hero with a smile. Both appear a bit fat looking at them like this. Out of curiosity and shock, Aster questions how they turned like this. Chenbi lets out an embarrassing laugh, and as he is about to say something, a student interrupts him and offers Chenbi to do the magic training together. In answer, he agrees without any hesitation. Another student waves at Damien and thanks him for his help at the trial. Thus Damon waves back at him. Apparently, Damon and Chenbi have gotten the spotlight due to that bracelet information, which they told the other students during the trials, which initially came from our boy. So now Chenbi thanks him for that. Due to that, not only the students but their parents also helped his family. Putting his purple cover book on the table, Aster claims there's no need to thank him, since Chenbi can't understand it. Aster explains that all the credits go to Chenbi, since he did everything to make other students understand him. Once our hero is done praising him, he asks about Damien, who is standing a bit away from them along with some other students. Chenbi answers that he caught a plant-type golem named Cabarrus. Our boy can't believe that he actually controlled a golem. Also praises him in his mind. Later on, Chenbi sits on the chair next to Aster, since they're meeting after a week now. But then someone appears behind Aster, which leaves Chenbi in shock. As our hero turns his head, he finds Professor Felina standing there, who then claims that she wants to talk with him. The scene shifts to her office, where our boy, Professor Felina are sitting next to each other. Aster is looking the other way. The professor questions if he knows the reason behind him being here. Aster answers that one thing he's sure about is that this meeting isn't regarding counseling. Agreeing with him, Felina begins to explain that it is about him being the descendant of an old war mage. Also questions if Vimar was behind the last incident. Our protagonist calls him trash. So, Professor Felina agrees with him, and even adds that everyone attached to Declan is trash. This was actually the principal's plan to introduce Aster as a descendant. It is because the headmaster also dislikes Vimar and Declan. So this plan was perfect to continue. Now Professor Felina, though suspicious, agrees to teach our boy. Later on, Professor Felina is about to say something. Stops, and it also seems like she's blushing. Further, she claims that she can cover everything for now, since he doesn't seem like a threat. At this moment, Aster interrupts her, saying they have a huge age gap between them with a relationship between a student, a teacher, so anything between them won't be possible. It seems like Aster got the wrong idea. Though blushing, Professor Felina lets out, "What the fuck?" out of her mouth in shock, since Professor Felina is about to do something opposite to her true nature. The words simply won't come out, leading Aster to get the wrong idea that she is trying to start a romance with him. Gathering up her courage, she finally thanks our boy for protecting both the students. The trial corridor, which leaves our hero in a state of total shock. Once he realizes what Felina was actually trying to say, Aster invites her to continue, and the professor tells him to carry on. There is a moment of silence between them, before Aster finally speaks about his goal of creating a library for everyone. Though hesitant, he asks if she can support him by providing a few of her publications to his collection. Professor Felina agrees to his proposal, but also asked him to move to the main point regarding the ancient artifact. She orders Aster to research the device, noting that they can destroy it in the worst-case scenario. The real problem is the forbidden magic cabal Salvatium, who will likely misuse it. Our hero repeats the word, but mispronounces it as Silvertown. Hearing this, Felina gets furious. She corrects him, but warns that she will tear off our boy's ears if he does it, and she then explains that Salvation is a union of all forbidden magic masters. Although none of them work together, their collective goal is to create a demonic realm. Talking about Friesen, she explains was the ones who gave life to their dream. And since Aster killed him, others will definitely come looking for the artifact. Felina explains that they are strong enough to fight against Declan. Therefore, even if our protagonist is powerful, fighting the Cabal could cause his death. Hearing about his potential demise, Aster lets out a smile, knowing that he is going to fight them regardless. He is confident in his ability to defeat them. Passing a quirky smirk to Felina, our boy agrees with her. Looking at him, she returns the smile. Cannot understand why Aster is smiling in such a situation. Taking the artifact out of his portal, Aster asks her to conduct research on it, and Felina agrees without hesitation. Amidst their conversation, an assistant rushes the door open, reports with clear fear in his voice, faced that the head of Declan has just arrived at the academy. This news leaves our protagonist in shock as well. Meanwhile, outside, people are rushing to strengthen defenses. Send students back to their dormitories, because Declan is reaching the academy in his carriage. The headmaster, Professor Felina, and Professor Fun wait for him outside. As the horses stop in front of them, the headmaster recognizes the man sitting in front as the new head of Declan Farron, who attained his position at age 30 and received the title of Archmage. One thing about the atrocities of Declan is that they become worse once a member becomes the head. The headmaster reflects on the fact that under the teachings of the founding headmaster, no one is treated as special. Even royals have to walk and dirty their shoes in the academy. However, the new head proudly refuses to step on the ground. Moreover, he works as a coachman, but moves around the academy on a horse against tradition. Yet no one can say anything, leading the headmaster to think he is quite sharp. Looking at them, the head of Declan questions if he has arrived before the set time. Confused, the headmaster asks what he is trying to say. Farron answers with another question, mentioning he heard the trial corridor was seized by intruders. Hearing this, the headmaster gets furious. Wonders if the man came here just to annoy him or investigate him. The headmaster thinks to himself that, although not everyone knows the reality that Declan was behind this, he still cannot understand the reason for this visit. Moving on, Farron claims he is here to help, and has caught the vermin, as he shows them Weimar's face through magic. He claims that he has brought the head along with the direct collateral lines, asking if they are satisfied. Aster, who is keeping his eyes on them from a distance, finally realizes that Farron took Weimar's head, thinking of his previous life. Our boy expected him to do something like this, since the man killed his own bloodline for the sake of Declan. Moreover, Aster thinks that things are going his way. He only told the headmaster about Declan, Weimar earlier, and now Farron has appeared on the scene. Although Aster cannot understand if he is simply lucky, he remembers that in his previous life he was far behind Farron and unable to understand him. Now the man seems like a massive mountain to climb. Aster, raising his hand and positioning it near Farah's neck in the air, claims he is confident enough to reach him in this life. Aster then closes his fist while his eyes sharpen with confidence. Several days have now passed, and a lot of activities are going on around the academy. The day when Farron came to the academy, he also announced the arrival of a direct descendant of Declan's blood at the academy as an undergraduate. Apparently, it is a powerful card, simply a hostage which only a prestigious family can play. Moreover, the imperial side also announced the third princess's enrollment, so no one knows whether it was their plan or just a coincidence. Aster is keeping these thoughts away since they will only enroll next year, and right now, they are having the Pistonite Festival. Apparently, this is a victory celebration for the students, who were once mobilized during the Age of War, since it was arranged for them after the trial incident. Our hero thinks the academy is treating this incident like that one, which is rather good to cheer up the students. Moreover, alcohol is also available at this festival, which shows that the academy is actually treating it like the Pistonite Festival. Everyone is allowed to drink openly, except those who are on duty, though they are drinking too while hiding. At one place, people are having a drinking competition, in which a person is winning again and again, so Damien challenges to go against him while Chenbi yells in shock. When everyone is busy with their activities, they hear the announcement about the award ceremony, are asked to gather at the Sage Hall to attend it. Our protagonist drags Damien from the drinking contest, thinking that they deserve a reward too. With a grin on his face, Aster is going to collect it. In the hall, the headmaster gave a speech for her, and then it proceeded towards the award ceremony. Later on, he asks all the students to come on the podium, whose names he is going to call. The names are Dahlia, Damien, Evine, Chenbi, and Aster. Looking at Evine, who is the daughter of the Golden Trading Company, our hero thinks there is something suspicious about her. Also, he doesn't remember her from his previous life, but due to the testimonies, he has no other option but to take her as a contributor too. Now they are going to receive awards which are top-grade elixir. Walking towards Aster, the headmaster shows his deepest appreciation towards him. Talking through telepathy, our boy questions if he can return it, since it is more like trash. So the headmaster answers if Aster puts it in the incinerator, he will put him in there too. Hearing it, Aster thinks to himself that he can just burn it without anyone knowing. After the award ceremony, Aster spends his day enjoying the festival with Damien and Chenbi. Our hero thinks they deserve it, since they have been going around. At night, the academy also arranged the fireworks, about which Aster thinks it is a waste of money, but still he feels like it is quite amazing. Looking at the sky, he begins to dream about his tower, where he dreams to go to the highest floor and look at the ground. After making the tower, Aster also dreams of holding such a festival which will last for a week. We'll also hold a sage ascension ceremony at last. It would be a festival about him as a great sage while riding on a wyvern. He is thinking of a white one. Aster spends his night in that dream. Upon waking, he finds a white owl on his window. As he reads the message which was tied on the owl, it was from the headmaster. Apparently, he is asking Aster to meet him. Standing on his window, our boy takes a high jump along with the owl. After some time, he is standing in front of the high building, which was once used by troubleshooters centuries ago. Opening the door, he addresses the headmaster as senior. The owl flies away from his head. Looking around the room, our hero says that he should call it an office. The headmaster answers that though he wants to, he cannot help it due to traditions. Moving on, the headmaster offers tea to our boy, which seems quite suspicious to Aster, so he inquires about the reason. The headmaster answers that he wants to talk about the favor, which Aster traded for the library pass earlier. Taking out a letter, the headmaster asks Aster to deliver it to his friend. Aster can sense quite a bit of suspiciousness in it, so he questions where he has to go to deliver it. The headmaster answers that though his friend is hiding. After asking around from the old comrades, he finds out that he is hiding in the Hamron Great Forest. Actually, this forest has been preserved during ancient times, along with many kinds of monsters and magical materials too. Aster cannot believe that he wants him to go there. The headmaster thinks that our boy can find him easily since people live there. As Aster is about to deny it, the headmaster adds something, takes out another page for him, on which plenty of elixirs are written, which he is granting to Aster. Later on, the headmaster asks him to continue his sentence. So our hero continues, but instead of rejecting, he states that he is going to retire from the academy. This means Aster has accepted his proposal since it was quite high to reject. Reviewing the agreement with the headmaster, Aster appears quite excited. He has received 3 top-grade elixirs thus far, leading him to believe his current life is going well. Adding to this enthusiasm, he also holds vouchers for the Irricane Workshop, a prestigious establishment favored by noble families. He wonders if this is a dream or reality. The headmaster is plotting to send him on a mission which explains the influx of gifts. Specifically, the headmaster requires help from a certain individual who is currently occupied with a personal task. He wants our hero to travel there and assist the man. Upon realizing this is a setup, Aster demands more compensation, even pushing negotiations to a dangerous brink. As he considers his progress, he originally planned to increase his mana capacity. But with 3 elixirs in his possession, he decides to attempt a technique called mana limbs. This method references the reinforced bodies of knights achieved through ether. Our boy believes he can finally shed his weak physique, become a mage with the constitution of a knight. He is eager to surpass the strength he held in his previous life. Some time passes. Aster sits at his regular spot, ready to meditate. He consumes an elixir from a nearby box and begins the process, carefully directing the mana into every part of his body. Suddenly, the firebrand inside him activates. This makes him anxious, causing him to lose focus, but he soon regains control. Deep down, he wonders what the outcome will be this time. After circulating the mana throughout his body, he begins inserting it into his muscle fibers. He groans as extreme pain flares through him. The sensation is so intense that he fears his body is tearing apart, making him question if the effort is worth the agony. Just as he considers stopping, the firebrand forces the cultivation to continue even harder. He yells at the brand, fearing his body isn't ready for such intensity. The process eventually finishes. Aster stands up drenched in perspiration. He examines his hand, wondering if the technique worked, and notes that he must train properly to reach his full potential. To test himself, he bites his thumb, expecting the wound to heal in 15 minutes. To his shock, it heals instantly. He realizes he is already stronger than he was in his previous life. With the secret tome of healing light from Henzi, he believes he can reach the same level as Damien. Aster senses mana emanating from his blood on the floor, noting its similarity to his own. He hypothesizes that he can control it, and tests this theory with a light emission spell. As he casts it, he realizes that he provides the spark. The true power originates from the blood. By increasing his blood volume and utilizing a collision formula, he will become even more powerful. Aster decides to utilize the Blandor family's healing art, the proliferation formula. Due to its effectiveness and regeneration, he considers discussing this with Henzi, but he wishes to avoid the man. He decides to wait until Lance arrives for the parent consultation. Despite the complications, our protagonist is thrilled with this new power, which he names blood magic. The scene shifts to a woman named Lanzancy sitting before Aster, Damien, and Chenbi. She inquires about their health before explaining her visit. Lady Gamo sent her to discuss the Blandor Inner Lake construction, the statue architecture proposal they suggested earlier. Lance remarks that the proposal was impressive, wondering if they had outside help. As she sips her tea, Damon and Chenbi wait excitedly for Lady Gamo's decision. Lance announces that the proposal was denied. However, she offers a condition. If they want the project to proceed, Damon must place in the top 16 during midterm evaluations. She also offers Aster and Chenbi a reward from the Blandor family if they help Damien prepare. Although our hero knows that tutoring Damien will be difficult, he agrees to the task as he remains determined to obtain the proliferation formula. Aster begins teaching Damien as per the agreement with Lanzancy. When our protagonist questions him about his familiarity with the basics of magic, Damon simply stands there with a blank expression, clearly knowing nothing. Aster then asks to see his note. In response, Damon drops a heavy pile of books in front of them. Beside them, Chenbi looks at the books in complete disbelief. Chenbi asks if Damon at least turned his assignments into the teachers on time. When Damon confirms he did, Chenbi breathes a sigh of relief. though Aster remains suspicious. Reviewing the notes, our boy realizes that Damon is hopeless with magic. He actually excels in culture and history. This means they must focus entirely on his magic classes. While the material is manageable, our hero feels a lack of confidence in his ability to get through the lessons without hitting his student. During their session, Furion approaches and asks if Aster is truly going to teach Damien. He offers his assistance, though our boy struggles to see how he could be of use. Noticing their skepticism, Furion produces a paper covered in formulas that Chenbi recognizes immediately. With a slight smile, Furion explains that it is a compilation of recent academy exams, including summarized questions from all their professors. As Chenny reviews the papers, Furion asks if they are ready to trust him. Although our protagonist is reluctant to accept him, he realizes he has no other option. As soon as he agrees, Furion reveals his condition. He wants help with combat after the midterm exams, believing Aster's fighting skills will be a great asset. Within a split second, our hero suggests heading to the training room to help him immediately. Furion yells after him, explaining that someone else actually needs the help, asks the boy to follow him instead. After walking for some time, they reach the city of Haze. Aster asks how much further they have to go, and while Furion claims they are almost there, our protagonist is already exhausted. Walking behind him, Aster feels a growing urge to hit him until Furion finally stops at their destination. The building appears to be a private training center, leading Aster to realize that the person they are meeting must be quite wealthy. Dahlia Deni welcomes them. Furion speaks with her, suggesting she reconsiders seeking help from Aster, but Dahlia remains persistent. After a moment of thought, our hero offers a different proposal. Dahlia should train with Furion instead. He explains that he must focus on teaching Damien until the exams are over. A shocked Furion tells Dahlia not to listen to him, yelling at our protagonist that he just provided them with vital study materials. Aster counters that the materials were payment for a previous debt. Furion still hasn't made amends for what he did to Chenbi. Dahlia agrees with our boy, further shocking Furion. He begins to protest, claiming that as a descendant of the Dai family, he won't accept such an arrangement. With a smirk, Aster watches him, thinking he has found the perfect punching bag. Eventually, Furion stops arguing and leaves to study for the midterms. Aster assures Dahlia that he will fulfill his duty now that payment is settled. He asks if she wants person-to-person combat training, and she simply nods. The scene shifts to a dining table where Evelyn has lunch with a man named DB. They discuss the recent trial corridor, noting that no one succeeded in obtaining the bracelet. With a smile, Evelyn mentions that preparations for the upcoming exams will be finished within the week. Dibe immediately assumes she wants him to steal the exam papers, but Evelyn claims she only wants his general help. Instead of agreeing, the man hands her a page with an address, telling her the person there will assist her. After receiving it, she politely invites him to finish his meal. Walking behind Dahlia, Aster reflects on his previous life. The two shared a deep, bitter history fueled by a mutual animosity, intense that he is certain that he would have killed her numerous times had she not been constantly protected. However, he also recognizes the strategic value in teaching her. In his past life, she somehow managed to seize control over Declan, and he is eager to use their training sessions as a means of seeking a bit of personal revenge through combat. Standing face to face, our protagonist asks her about the basis of their duel. Dahlia, curious and focused, explains that she wants to learn the specific movements he utilized during his fight with Aster. Our hero dismisses this, explaining that one cannot learn simply by mimicking. She must develop a method suited to her own strengths. He poses a question. Who would win a duel between an official rank 8 and a rank 9 mage? When Dahlia guesses the rank 8 would prevail, he corrects her, stating that victory simply goes to whoever succeeds in cracking the other's head first. Dahlia appears confused, but before she can process the thought, Aster attacks her, remarking that the first strike wins the fight. He continues to instruct her using various methods, effectively beating her until dawn before departing for home. Looking at the sky, he muses that if he continues to thrash her in this manner, she will likely learn everything she needs quite soon. While heading back, Aster thinks of Damien until a familiar face in the crowd catches his eye. A creepy smile spreads across his face as he spots DB, the man Evelyn sent to procure the exam papers. Though DB wishes to quit working for her, he feels trapped by the allure of her noble connections. Despite his previous failure caused by Aster, he remains determined to succeed this time. Our hero follows him as he reaches a tea house. Dibe approaches a worker and with some hesitation orders a frozen dragonhorn tea hot. The nonsensical order is clearly a secret code. The worker's invitation to wait confirms he has come to the right place. The man eventually places a cup of tea before him. Noting Dubby's surprise at the location, he explains that those who seek a dark merchant often expect a hidden lair rather than a common tea house. When the merchant asks for his business, DB reveals he is after the first-year magic department exam papers. The man offers to take DB to meet the seller the following week, providing a specific time and place, while warning him not to write the details down. Listening from outside, Aster can hardly believe the coincidence of the buyer and the papers appearing simultaneously. To investigate further, he changes his clothes, dons a mask belonging to Declan to hide his identity. Inside, the merchant is already planning to flee the city of Hayes once the deal is done. Fearing the aftermath of the exams, our protagonist enters, projecting the persona of a Tiger Ruby Jade user, and demands Callahan's subspace pouch. The merchant is shocked, wondering how this stranger knows of an item supposedly lost upon Callahan's death, when the man denies having it. Aster brings up the conversation with the boy who just left. The merchant hesitates, but our hero feigns irritation, claiming the voices in his head are becoming too loud. Terrified by the display of power, the man realizes he is dealing with no ordinary mage and begins to confess everything. Aster suggests they continue the story while walking toward the warehouse, insisting on inspecting it himself to ensure nothing is being hidden. The merchant can only stare back in utter disbelief. Walking towards the warehouse, the merchant remains reluctant to disclose the details of DB's visit. However, our hero, still disguised as a mage of Declan, reassures him by swearing upon Declan's name that no harm will come to him as long as the secret is unrelated to the family. Though still anxious, the man finally confesses that the boy came to him under Evelyn's orders. He admits he doesn't know every detail, but he is certain she is attempting to establish a black market for buying and selling exam papers. Upon hearing her name, Aster immediately recognizes her. She is famous at the academy for being polite, studious, and a model student. He finds it difficult to believe she is orchestrating such a scheme behind her perfect facade. He feels a sense of disgust, noting how unfair this is to students with fewer resources. They soon reach the warehouse, and the man opens the door. While scanning the room, Aster remarks that he doesn't see anything suspicious yet. However, he then abruptly orders the man to prepare 2 subspace pouches, announcing that he intends to confiscate every questionable item in the building. The merchant is left in a state of total shock. Elsewhere, Chenbi attempts to tutor Damon, but their constant disagreements lead to endless arguing. Furion, watching the exchange, is reaching a breaking point of frustration. He recognizes that Damien is a genius, but lacks any shred of common sense. The boy often makes glaring calculation errors, yet somehow arrives at the correct result. At the same time, Furion worries about Dahlia, fearing that Aster might be influencing her mind. Just then, Dahlia appears covered in bandages and calls out to him. Seeing her battered state, Furion becomes furious with our hero. Despite the friction, the group studies together for a week. When Chenbi and Furion finally test Damien, they are shocked to find that every one of his answers is correct. Damien erupts with excitement, shouting that he will now be able to produce blood, sweat, and tears. While Furion notes that Damien has only mastered the basics problems, he is still impressed. Simultaneously, his anger toward Aster grows as he waits for him to reappear. Meanwhile, our hero remains in his disguise, keeping a close watch on DB. Aster considered capturing him during the meeting with the seller, but decided the timing wasn't right. Though he is ready to expose Evelyn and die, our protagonist chooses to wait, suspecting that more buyers will soon emerge. DB eventually reaches his destination and enters. He provides the specific details for the papers Evelyn demanded. A man standing behind her meticulously verifies that the official seals patterns match those of the academy. Evelyn then suggests that she will continue to give Dibe such missions, even promising to help him secure a position at the Pingroot Trading Company. Excited by the prospect of his family finally respecting him, DB listens as Evelyn instructs him to distribute the papers to their clients before dismissing him. Once he is gone, a creepy smile crosses Evelyn's face as she calls him an idiot. She stands and questions a cloaked figure about their preparations. The man explains that soon everything she has done will be pinned on Dibe and the Pingroove Trading Company. Evelyn is using the boy as a scapegoat. Watching through the window, our boy is stunned by the depth of her malice. His priority shifts to teaching Evelyn a lesson she won't forget. Although our hero has recorded the entire exchange in a crystal orb, he decides to wait for the perfect moment to strike. After pondering his next move, he devises a plan to steer her back toward a more honorable path. He begins writing on a sheet of paper, concluding his message by pressing a stamp into the corner. On the other hand, Dahlia continues to practice the lesson Aster taught her regarding the first strike. She focuses on magic that activates instantly and can be cast unconsciously, understanding now that even a genius will fall once their head is smashed. The scene shifts to the exam hall as students finish their writing. The invigilator calls for pens down and begins collecting the papers. A group gathers around Demon to discuss their answers, and to their shock, he provides the correct solutions, a feat he has never achieved before. As they wonder if he has been secretly studying, Damon boasts about his sudden intelligence. In the back of the room, Evelyn watches, knowing the truth. Damon is the eldest son of Viscount Haramir, whose family controls the kingdom's primary grain warehouses. Because of the leaked exam papers, she anticipates receiving priority security in the bidding for the cereal fields as payment from the Haramir family. Having made 4 such deals already, she waits greedily to see what the remaining 3 clients will offer. Her thoughts are interrupted when a man enters the hall, leads several students away, including Deb. Evelyn assumes the authorities have discovered the leak, but her composure breaks when the man summons Demon in as well, stating the director has requested his presence. The following day, all first-year students are summoned to the Grand Hall for an emergency meeting. Rumors of the cheating scandal have already spread, and the room is thick with gossip. Standing among the crowd, Evelyn desperately tries to figure out how a confidential informant could have surfaced. A speaker takes the stage, calling for silence before addressing the assembly. He announces that large-scale cheating occurred during the midterms, reveals that 5 students, including Dibe, have already been expelled. The speaker then prepares to announce the individual who uncovered the truth. To Evelyn's utter horror, he praises her as the whistleblower. As the crowd erupts into cheers for her supposed integrity, Evelyn tries to insist she is not the one responsible, but her protests are drowned out. While she has avoided expulsion, the situation feels like a trap. Behind her, Aster quietly enjoys the show, knowing this was the only way to force her onto a righteous path. A week passes and the results are finally posted. Students, including Chenbi and Damien, crowd around the ranking list. Initially, Dam appears in 18th place, causing a wave of disappointment. Aster, however, notices Dean's name still holding 7th. The official posting the list realizes a clerical error and corrects it. Damon's name moves up to 16th place. Damien and Chenbi celebrate wildly. Our protagonist focuses on the formula he will now claim as his reward. In the midst of the excitement, Chenbi mentions that his experience tutoring Damien has inspired him to apply for an assistant teacher position. Aster immediately discourages this, pointing out that an assistant was implicated in the cheating scandal. The pay is so poor. When our boy asks how long it takes to become an associate professor, Chenbi notes that Professor Perron estimates 3 to 4 years. Seeing Chenbi's persistent desire to teach, our hero advises him to become an archmage instead. Aster explains that once he reaches that level, everyone will fear him, allowing him to teach without hurdles or interference. Deep down, our protagonist truly wants this for him, believing Chenbi is far too talented to settle for a mere assistant role. That night, a purple-eyed man enters a pub, sits across from a figure hidden beneath a cloak. He speaks of ancient ruins recently discovered in the forest of Hamlon. As he shares the news, a creepy smile spreads across his face. Several more days pass and Aster and Chenbi meet with Lankency to receive their rewards. Our protagonist demands the multiplication formula. Lankency agrees, granting him a high-tier version that exceeds his expectations. Turning her attention to Chenbi, Lance inquires if he is aware of the ongoing issues within his family. Chenbi admits that while there have been struggles, things are improving daily. Lance offers to assist his family, even promises them a new residence, but Chenbi politely declines. He explains that he wishes to remain friends with Damien, as equals without the weight of such a debt. A smile touches Lancy's face at his integrity. Aster sits between them, feeling momentarily like a third wheel. Chenbi then states that his only wish is to study magic at House Blandor. Lance is surprised by the simplicity of the request, but Chenbi reassures her it is truly all he wants. Later, a man reports the details of this meeting to Lady Gammo, Damien's mother. Hearing of the exchange, Lady Gammo feels a sense of peace, realizing her son has found genuine friends. Since Chenbi assisted Damien so significantly, she decides to go further than requested, signing an official statement making Chenbi a patron of the house. Upon seeing the agreement, Chenbi is speechless, and the matter concludes harmoniously for everyone. As more time passes, Professor Felina announces the commencement of interpersonal combat preparations. She explains that all other classes will be suspended for a period to allow the academy to focus exclusively on combat. These sessions are not mandatory. Students are free to attend, skip them, or even return to their homes. Amidst the confusion of his classmates, Aster wonders about the motive behind this sudden shift in the curriculum. He is certain the decision came from the higher-ups, rather than the teaching staff. That evening, the headmaster sends a letter to Aster via owl, with only 80 written inside. Our protagonist arrives at the meeting destination to find the headmaster has erected a barrier spanning an entire warehouse. An astonishing feat of magic. Stepping inside the perimeter, Aster decides to test his new multiplication formula. He releases a single drop of blood from his finger, which rapidly multiplies into a cloud of hovering droplets. The headmaster appears behind him. Noting that the mana within the blood clearly belongs to our boy, he asks if they can be manipulated with magic. When our hero demonstrates his control over the droplets, the headmaster is visibly shocked, demands to know how such a feat is possible. With a smirk, Aster agrees to explain everything, but only after the headmaster grants him a favor. He wants the man to act as a sparring partner. He can battle test his new skill. Aster advises the headmaster to stay alert, but the man dismisses the threat, claiming the boy won't be able to land a scratch on him. In response, our protagonist begins merging the floating red rubies of blood into a single massive sphere. He launches the attack, declaring that explosion is an art. A violent blast follows, blanketing the area in thick smoke. The headmaster eventually emerges from the haze, demanding to know Aster's true identity, as his power far exceeds that of a normal student. Aster calmly maintains that he is just a student, not some demon possessing a human host. Still suspicious, the headmaster asks again about the nature of the red orbs. Aster responds by holding up his middle finger, indicating the source of the blood. This earns him a sharp punch to the head from the annoyed headmaster. Once they are both seated inside, our protagonist asks why he was summoned. The headmaster explains that he needs to discuss the Great Forest. But first he produces a magical orb for Aster to examine. Our hero can only stare at the object in complete shock. The Great Forest of Amon is a dense wilderness teeming with monsters. Hardy humans who have somehow managed to endure its conditions. Only elite mercenaries are capable of surviving within its borders. Yet even these veterans are growing fearful. Aster finds this reaction natural given that the enemy consists of undead creatures. However, the headmaster clarifies that these are no ordinary undead. They are self-born, moving by the power of the soul itself. This leads our protagonist to wonder if these entities were sealed away alongside the ancient ruins. The headmaster explains that the threat is actually the destroyer, the most impure being in existence. It appears the seal has shattered, allowing spirits to roam freely. He notes that they must reach the forest within 2 days. But since none of his disciples are currently available, he turns to our hero. He makes it clear that even if Aster refuses the mission, he will not take back the rewards previously given. Our boy questions if there is an additional prize for completing this task, but the headmaster admits there is nothing else to offer. As the headmaster begins a plea regarding the lives at stake, Aster interrupts to accept the mission. This sudden compliance shocks the headmaster, but our hero explains that he wouldn't bargain over the life of the headmaster's friend. In truth, our boy intended to go regardless, as he seeks a specific type of knowledge only available within that forest. To facilitate the journey, the headmaster provides a teleportation ticket and an artifact cloak, the latter of which Aster feels is almost too valuable to be given away so casually. Finally, he hands over the sock wall mark, warning our protagonist to remain vigilant. The headmaster explains that a man named Hell is hiding his identity within the forest, and this mark will allow him to recognize Aster as an ally. To handle House Blandor, our boy sends a letter to Chenbi stating he is leaving for training, should not be searched for. The scene shifts to Greentown, a settlement near the Great Forest. Locals prepare to enter the woods, planning to exit before nightfall. Inside a local pub, a mage named Oberon sits alone, fretting over the sudden surge of monsters, wondering if his request for aid will be answered. His subordinate approaches him in tears, swearing he will never return to the forest. Oberon insists they have no choice as they are bound by contract and have already been paid. While Oberon worries, a subtle, treacherous smile plays on his face. He has no intention of returning with a weak mage like Oberon. He plans to either find a more powerful partner or simply abandon his mentor and flee. At that moment, Aster appears prominently wearing the sack wall mark. Taking a seat, he asks Oberon if Laheim is his mentor. When Oberon confirms this, our hero realizes he has found the right contact, instructs the mage to address him as senior, shoves a map toward Oberon. Reiterating his refusal to go, Oberon accepts the map, feeling braver now that he has a companion. However, our hero orders to stop. He challenges the man to sit back down within a single second or face the consequences. Fails to react in time. And as the second expires, Aster stands and begins beating him mercilessly. As Oberon watches the display in total shock, a single question crosses his mind. Can this newcomer truly destroy the destroyer? Inside the Great Forest, the purple-eyed Solon works meticulously on the ground as Mole emerges from the shadows. When Mole inquires about the progress, Solon invites him to see for himself. Peering into a nearby cave, Mole realizes the seal has not yet fully shattered. Soon explains that, despite his continuous casting of the unsealing spell, the process is agonizingly slow, which Mole finds deeply annoying. Mole notes the oddity of the situation, as he can clearly feel a heavy aura of death clinging to the air. The conversation turns to an ancient warm mage, whom Mole believes is currently hunting for death rows. Soon wonders if Mole can handle such an adversary alone, since must remain behind to maintain the unsealing ritual. Mole brags about his prowess, claiming his subspace is already filled with the heads of war mages, making this newcomer just another trophy. Meanwhile, our protagonist treks through the woods alongside Oberon with a heavily bandaged leading the way. Oberon reflects that while the local monsters are lethal, they surely cannot defy the power of their own blood. He marvels at how his luck has turned. Only minutes ago he was despairing, but now he feels a sense of security. Looking at Aster, Oberon assumes they are roughly the same age due to their similar height and silently praises him. Our boy has solved every problem with ease, even earning the nickname New Moon in record time. Aster offers to place the heavy bag Lee is hauling into his subspace, but refuses, insisting it contains essential items for an emergency. Since the bag also holds Oberon's belongings, our hero suspects is still plotting a robbery. Their internal musings are cut short by a sudden rush of noise. Warns the group to stay alert as enemies close in from behind. Ham-orcs mounted on wolf-like beasts is shocked to see the orcs so far from the second base. As Oberon grows anxious, red orbs suddenly materialize in the air. Our hero's blood multiplied through his secret formula. Addressing Oberon as Junior, Aster orders him to erect a shield. He then launches an attack, triggering a massive explosion. When the smoke clears, the orcs have vanished, and the landscape is charred. Terrified by this display of power, immediately backtracks. Begs Aster to take the bag into his subspace. As they continue, they encounter 7-feet-tall goblins, a sight that strikes Aster as highly unusual. He wonders if Deathross is the cause of this mutation. Identifies them as Kenny goblins, typically found only near the second base camp. Their presence here suggests they are either expanding their territory or fleeing a greater threat. Upon closer inspection, points out that their fingernails are caked with dust. Bark and their feet are heavily damaged, confirming they are in a desperate retreat. Suggests taking a detour to avoid further hordes. Though our hero is confident in his strength, he agrees to the change in route, successfully navigates them onto a safer path, which impresses Aster. Even with his own vast knowledge, he wouldn't have found this trail. For the first time, our boy begins to trust him. By nightfall, announces they are near the base with only a swamp left to cross. He suggests that Aster and Oberon rest by a fire while he scouts ahead. As they sit, Oberon's anxiety peaks. He laments that they must find Deathross immediately, or the monsters will overrun them, even going so far as to claim the entire catastrophe is his fault. Aster listens, wondering why Oberon is choosing to confide these heavy burdens to him. Their conversation is shattered by a loud crash as comes sprinting back, screaming for them to run. The ruler of the swamp is upon them. The depths is a localized hell within the great forest. The ruler of the swamp is one of the most lethal creatures hailing from that territory. As the three sit around the fire, explains that no one truly knows why the beast moved into the forest. It remained hidden for centuries, but its recent appearance in the wetlands is a stroke of terrible luck. Aster asks if they can simply bypass the area given the forest's vastness. Clarifies that avoidance is impossible, as the creature will catch their scent the moment they touch the water. Oberon suggests a different route, but notes that a detour would cost them 10 days, perhaps even a month, and might force them all the way back to the third base camp. Our hero stands up, prompting to ask if he wants a new path cleared. To their shock, Aster announces they are taking the wetlands route regardless. Desperately tries to explain that the creature is a legend that has slaughtered countless mages and knights. Our boy simply counters that they won't just be walking through the swamp. They are going to kill the beast. Willie initially feels a flicker of peace. The gravity of the second sentence hits him. He realizes how dire their situation has become. Oberon insists that Aster shouldn't throw his life away. In response, our protagonist tells him to be quiet and find his resolve, warning that if he stays paralyzed by fear now, he'll never survive an encounter with death. As he walks away, he declares the decision final. The ruler of the swamp dies tomorrow. Reflecting on these words, Oberon eventually stands and vows to assist. He reveals a hidden, unawakened talent called Overclock, which pushes a target's potential to its absolute limit for a short duration. Aster stops and orders him to explain the technique in full. The next morning, our boy finds Oberon meditating alone. When Oberon asks what he's doing, the protagonist reveals whom he is dragging by the collar. Was attempting to flee, so our hero tells him to pick out a favorite tree. The next time he tries to run, Aster will tie him to it, leave him as a snack for the wyverns. Begins begging, crying, swearing he won't desert them again. After breakfast, Aster is fully prepared for the hunt. He asks if the others are ready. Oberon agrees, though remains a trembling mess. Our boy strides into the wetlands, knowing the creature is sensitive to any intrusion. He draws his dagger and cuts his finger. The moment the blood hits the water, the swamp begins to churn. As Oberon and watch in terror, our protagonist challenges his enemy to show itself and face its end. The creature erupts from the depths and Aster glances at Oberon, the signal to begin. Oberon casts the full release spell on our hero, propelling his power to its peak. With a surge of energy, Aster leaps into the air, closing the distance to deliver the first strike against the ruler of the swamp. The night before, Oren had disclosed the full details of his gift to Aster. He warned that the target can only sustain such a full release of strength for 5 minutes. Any longer would prove fatal. In the present, as our protagonist lunges toward the monster, he determines that 5 minutes is more than enough to secure a victory. He initiates a Stage 2 ignition attack, engulfing the creature in a relentless blaze. Watches in confusion, unable to comprehend what kind of spell allows fire to continue burning even upon the surface of the water. The monster appears to weaken within the inferno, leading the group to believe the end is near. However, the beast lets out a sudden ear-piercing roar that causes the flames to vanish instantly. Aster realizes the roar was a manual disruption of the mana flow, but as the smoke clears, he unintentionally locks eyes with the creature. Standing at a distance, screams for our boy to look away, warning that the enemy's gaze can freeze a person's mana. Aster yells back, cursing him for providing such vital information so late, momentarily transported to his childhood. Remembering his father's warnings about the ruler of the swamp, his father had described the creature's ability to paralyze mana through eye contact, its power to repel even the strikes of a knight. Until this moment, fear had him on the verge of desertion, questioning why he should risk his life for these mages. Yet looking at Aster, he realizes our hero is different from anyone he has ever met, choosing to finally place his trust in the boy. He overcomes his cowardice, even if his warning came late, now ready to fight alongside his companions. Watches as Aster adjusts his strategy, since he cannot look the monster in the eye. Our protagonist makes another cut on his hand, splashes his blood directly at the creature's face. The droplets strike the monster's eyes, causing sharp pain and blurring its vision. Seizing the opening, Aster executes a collision attack that leaves the beast heavily injured. With the monster unable to focus its gaze, our hero repairs his final move, Explosive Annihilation. The attack hits with devastating force, successfully defeating the enemy. Oberyn and look on in a state of shock. As the smoke clears from the sky, our boy lies in the shallow water completely exhausted. He reflects on his past fight with Pahern, remembering that he had intended to use this very attack then, but was too tired to execute it. He wonders how Pahern would have reacted. While he is certain the man would have found a way to block it, he doubts his opponent would have walked away smiling. Beside him, the ruler of the swamp lies dead, its body sliced in half. Oberyn and rush toward him in a state of excitement. However, the scene shifts to a crow perched on a nearby tree. Looking closely at its eyes, it becomes clear that someone is using the bird to keep a watchful sight on our hero. The watcher in the trees is none other than Mole, who has been following Aster and even orchestrated the encounter with the swamp creature. Observing the battle, Mole doubts our boy as a simple mage, given the staggering volume of mana he wields. More impressively, Mole felt a rare flicker of fear while watching the struggle. He feels a sudden intense urge to hunt our hero, yet the sensation is unfamiliar. It is not the typical excitement of a predator finding prey, but rather the mutual respect a hunter feels for a peer. Now he is eager to test who is stronger, though he knows he must prepare himself before making his move. The scene shifts to the campfire where Aster finally wakes. He asks how long he has been out, and Oberyn informs him it has only been 2 hours. Our protagonist still feels nauseous, which Oberyn explains is a side effect of the overclock technique. Since the duration was short, the condition isn't fatal, but he will remain weakened for at least a day. Looking at his trembling hands, our boy feels like death. Realizing he would have likely drowned in the wetlands if his companions hadn't pulled him out, Aster soon calls for who appears instantly to reassure him that he has no intention of running away. When asked where he was, explains he was scavenging the Lord of the Swamp's remains for valuables. He asks our hero what should be done with the corpse. Aster tells him he can keep it, even hands over Callahan's subspace pouch, which he acquired from the black market. Oberyn is hesitant, noting that the monster's parts are incredibly expensive, but our boy insists that deserves the reward. Oberyn begins praising his character, touched by such a lack of materialism. In reality, Aster knows that while these parts are famous, they often lose their magical value the moment the creature dies. As begins cutting through the flesh with suspicious ease, our hero's theory is confirmed. The corpse is already worthless. Ober questions their next move, noting they are behind schedule. That suggested resting for another day. Aster, however, refuses to wait and insists they keep moving. By nightfall, they reach the base camp, which is shrouded in total darkness. Explains that they avoid fires to prevent attracting monsters. He suggests they find the keeper to secure quarters, noting that the camp is run by a mercenary group who act as local lords, essentially glorified bandits. The mention of bandits makes anxious, but his nerves worsen when someone calls his name from the shadows, recognizes the man and addresses him as chief. Oberyn identifies the newcomer as the camp's fixer and the leader of the base. Before Oberyn can finish introducing the group, the man jumps forward, announcing their name is Aviat. The chief extends a hand to Aster, who responds by grasping it with a crushing grip. The chief mocks the gesture as childish behavior. Even as Oberyn winces at the sound of something breaking, the leader explains he is there. He heard rumors they are heading toward Base Camp 4. He glares at mentioning he heard this from someone who bragged about scamming a mage. The chief then proposes that his group accompany them, warning that Base Camp 4 is on the verge of falling if no action is taken. Aster considers the offer, but before he can agree, Oberyn flatly denies the request, leaving our hero confused. Oberyn explains that the situation at the 4th base is far worse than anyone could imagine. The camp has essentially become a land of death. The chief questions if Oberyn believes they should avoid the area. It is a suicide mission. When Oberyn agrees, the chief flares with anger, claiming he has survived this forest solely through his sword. Will not be told what to do. He insults Oberyn, stating he expected much more from a disciple of Raheim. As the chief storms off, Oberyn is left standing in a cloud of shame. Aster and move to enter the base. After taking a shower, Aster feels refreshed. After checking on his companions, seeks out the chief to talk. As he takes a seat, the chief dismisses him as a kid. In response, our hero asks the man's age. The chief reveals he turns 50 next year, to which Aster dryly remarks that he himself was 50 last year. Moving past the banter, he offers to let the chief join their party, advising him not to take Oberyn's hesitation seriously. Aster was genuinely impressed by the ether he sensed from the man earlier. However, the chief remains suspicious, wondering if the boy intends to use his men as bait. Our hero admits that, while that wasn't his initial thought, he isn't above using them if a need arises. The chief explains that this mission is actually an escape route. He is sending the younger mercenaries out of the Great Forest. The veterans head toward the 4th base camp. Aster muses that it's a heavy burden to put oneself in such danger for the sake of others, but the chief remains resolute. The chief then demands that stay behind to guide the younger recruits out of the forest, offering our protagonist a different guide in exchange. When Aster asks why a guide is necessary for a standard exit, the chief points to the threat of the Lord of the Swamp in the wetlands. Our hero tells him not to worry about the beast, casually explaining that he has already sent the monster to the afterlife. The next day, the mercenaries begin dismantling the camp and gathering supplies. Aster approaches the chief to ask if he is ready to depart. The chief explains his delay was only to ensure the safety of the younger generation. They strike a deal. Our protagonist will lead the chief to Base Camp 4, after which they will go their separate ways. As the chief begins to speak with newfound respect, Aster suggests he drop the formalities, joking that he is only 2 years older than the man. As he walks away, the chief looks annoyed, certain our hero is younger than him. Yet he cannot ignore the fact that the boy killed a Lord-class monster. With the younger mercenaries safely on their way, the chief orders the remaining veterans to assemble. Unable to delay their march any longer,